The message blinked on my screen just after 10:00 a.m., wedged between a supplier update and a catering license renewal. I almost deleted it without listening, just another logistics check-in, I thought. But then I saw the name Yvette Morrow. I tapped play. "Hi, Ms. Caldwin. This is Yvette from Morrow & Kober's events. I'm calling on behalf of the Langston Caldwin wedding. I wanted to inform you that per request from the couple and their families, your name has been removed from the guest list. There was mention of a family dispute. I was also instructed to confirm that the $60,000 deposit you made earlier this year will be retained, as those funds have already been allocated across non-refundable services." Silence filled the room after the message ended. I didn't move. Outside my office window, Portland stretched in cool grays and autumn gold. The glass reflected my own face back at me, sharp, still unreadable. Behind me, assistants buzzed through morning calls. The pastry chef had sent over a sample menu. I was supposed to review lighting specs for our Charleston property by noon, but all I could hear was her voice. "Your name has been removed. They will keep the deposit." I'd wired the money 6 months ago after Delia called in a panic about budget gaps and catering costs. She never asked for help directly, not in words. She'd always had our parents to lean on, always had the comfort of being understood. I paid because I didn't want her to carry the weight alone, and because I thought, maybe this time it would mean something. Apparently it had, just not in the way I imagined. My phone rang again, same number. I let it go to voicemail. This time I didn't need to listen. I already knew what she was calling about. I turned back to my desk, eyes steady, voice even. "Get Yvette on the line. I'll take the call now." Yvette's voice came through before I could finish my greeting. "Ms. Caldwin, I'm so sorry to reach out like this again. I wasn't sure if the message earlier was clear or if maybe it reached you in error, but cancel the wedding," I said. There was a pause, then a breathless rush. "I'm sorry what you heard me. Cancel the Langston Caldwin wedding, effective immediately." "But, Ms. Caldwin, you're not the bride. You're not even a member of the planning team, Yvette." I softened my tone. "Please open your vendor dashboard." I could hear her clicking through. I imagined the flicker of confusion across her face as she opened the Morrow & Coder backend and saw what I already knew she would. "See the ownership field on your management panel?" I asked. "Sterling Hawthorne Events, LLC," she said hesitantly. "That's me." Another silence. "Now check the venue, Ravenshade House." "That's us, but..." "Oh," her voice dropped. "Owned by Caldwin Properties, Catering Seraph Table Co." "That's... oh." "Hotel bookings under Calderhaven Residences, transportation through Emberline Chauffeurs, floral contract from Blue Vein Gardens, all subsidiaries, all mine." I didn't realize. No one does. That's the thing. The line went quiet again. I could hear her breathing, measured, stunned. Probably scanning the connections, cross-referencing files, maybe even checking our investor registry. It was all there. Every decision Delia and our parents had made had been funded, booked, and managed under my umbrella. And they never bothered to look up. "Cancel everything," I repeated gently. "Notify the vendors. Revoke reservations. Issue standard guest accommodation refunds where applicable." "Ms. Caldwin, I don't know what to say. There's nothing to say. Just follow procedure. I'll handle the contracts on our end." She hesitated one more beat. "They're going to call you." I almost smiled. "They're already too late." I ended the call and opened the second drawer of my desk. The check stub was still there, Delia's name in the memo. I slid it into the shredder and picked up my phone to prepare the vendor notifications. I was 22 when I dropped out of Cornell. It wasn't dramatic. No yelling match, no dramatic exit. Just a quiet decision and a long walk home from campus with a business plan in my back pocket and no one to tell. Maris called it a pause. Dorian called it a rebellion. Delia didn't say much at all, just blinked, then shifted the conversation back to her LSAT prep. I rented a converted garage off Burnside Avenue with no insulation, one outlet, and a folding table I used as a desk. I slept next to racks of glassware and floral samples. I cold emailed corporate teams, pitched wedding services to strangers at hotel lobbies, and made deliveries in my own car. I learned to survive on caffeine instinct and the belief that I wasn't crazy for wanting something different. Delia graduated on time, top 10%. She framed every acceptance letter and texted me photos of her graduation robes. Our parents called her focused. I was figuring things out. By the time I booked my first full-service event, I had built my own CRM bartered accounting software in exchange for venue space and memorized every line of the Oregon event permit code. When I bought my first hotel, a rundown boutique property with bad carpets and worse plumbing, I told them over dinner. Dorian smiled politely. "It's good to have something that keeps you busy." I wanted to tell them it wasn't a hobby. I wanted them to ask what I was building, how I was funding it, what I saw 5 years ahead. But they didn't. They passed the potatoes, asked about Delia's clerkship, and let the moment dissolve, so I learned not to tell them anything at all. I just kept building. And now they were planning a wedding inside walls I'd poured every inch of myself into, never realizing they were standing inside the very thing they had dismissed. I sent the final cancellation confirmation and turned my attention to the accounts team as the first call from my father came through. The phone vibrated on my desk again, same number as before. This time I answered. "Lyra." My father said, his voice more strained than I'd ever heard it. "There's been some kind of mistake. Delia just called us in tears. She said the venue canceled, the caterer too, even the cars." "What's going on?" I let the silence stretch for a moment. "There's no mistake," I said evenly. "The wedding is canceled. You can't be serious." "I'm completely serious." "I don't understand," he said, but I could hear it in his tone he did. He just didn't like the answer forming in his head. "You asked Morrow & Co. to remove me from the guest list. You told them there was a family disagreement. Then you told them to keep the $60,000 deposit I paid 6 months ago. You planned a celebration in a house I built and thought I wouldn't notice when you locked the door behind me. Lyra, no one meant to. You uninvited me from the wedding I paid for." I said each word precise. "So now you're uninvited from everything I own." He fell silent. "I'm not doing this out of spite," I added. "I'm doing it because you drew a line. I'm simply making it visible." "We didn't know you paid for it," he said finally, as if that excused it. "Delia said a friend helped. We didn't realize, because you didn't ask." He exhaled. "Look, it's a wedding. Things are emotional. Maybe we didn't handle this right, but surely you don't want to ruin your sister's big day over a misunderstanding. It's not a misunderstanding, Dad. It's a habit. One you've all had for years." There was a long pause, the kind that makes time feel thicker. "I thought you were still figuring things out," he said quietly. "I was. While you were watching Delia walk across a stage, I was signing deeds. While you were praising her promotions, I was negotiating full state hospitality contracts. I've never asked for applause, but I won't keep funding a narrative where I don't exist." Another breath. "Then what happens now?" "Now I said you figure out how to host a wedding without me." I hung up and opened my inbox. Yvette had written again. This time she wasn't asking for permission. She was asking for options. By noon, my assistant had fielded 6 calls from confused guests. 2 florists requested contract clarification, and my hotel GM in Ashland texted, "Is the Langston Caldwin block still valid? Bride's mom is panicking." I didn't reply. The panic wasn't mine to hold. The emails came next. Polite at first, then desperate. One from the officiant, one from the photographer, a spreadsheet from the wedding concierge team marked urgent. By the time Yvette called again, I was already expecting it. "Ms. Caldwin Lyra, please. I'm sorry to keep bothering you, but I'm getting calls from everyone. Guests, parents, vendors. There's so much confusion." "There's no confusion," I said calmly. "The wedding's canceled. I understand. But is there a compromise? A scaled-down version? Something salvageable? I've never seen a wedding unravel this fast." "They didn't know. They didn't care." I interrupted, then softened. "Look, I'm not here to punish anyone. But I also don't work on sentiment anymore. Not with them." She hesitated. "So, no version is possible." I leaned back in my chair. I knew exactly what they were hoping for, a miracle. A reinstated package may be a discount for the misunderstanding, some gesture that would let them pretend none of this had happened. Here's what I'll offer, I said. They can have the wedding at Briarfield, one of our smaller properties. The gardens are lovely. Reception space fits 80 max. Basic catering package. House florals. Staff photographer only. No substitutions, no upgrades. There was silence on her end. Total cost $200,000, I continued. Paid up front, non-refundable. That's 4 times what they were paying before. And a fraction of what it takes to earn back trust, I said. This is business now, Yvette. No discounts, no exceptions. She didn't argue. I'll draft a revised contract, I said. It expires in 48 hours. After that, they'll need to start from scratch with vendors who don't already know what happened. When I ended the call, I didn't feel triumphant, just tired. I opened the contract file and edited the venue name service tiers pricing. No fanfare. Just a clean slate with stricter terms. Then I saw Delia's name flash across my phone. I let it ring. Then I picked up. Lyra. Her voice was soft, almost unsure, like she didn't know if I'd answer or stay on the line. I'm here, I said. A pause stretched between us. I didn't know it was you, she said quietly. The deposit, the planning. I thought it was some silent investor Mom found. She just said we had a sponsor. I said nothing. I should have asked, she added. I should have known. The way things moved so easily, the upgrades we couldn't afford deep down, I think I knew it was someone who cared more than they let on. And yet, I said calmly, you let them uninvite me. Her breath caught. I let Mom decide who mattered. I thought it would be easier to go along with it. You weren't close with Reed, and you hadn't been around. I hadn't been asked, I corrected. There's a difference. I know. She was crying now, not dramatically, but the kind of quiet unraveling you hear only when someone realizes they'd been comfortably wrong. For a long time. I didn't speak up, she said, and I'm not calling now to fix it. I know I can't fix it. I just wanted to say, I'm sorry. You didn't ask where the money came from because it didn't occur to you that it could have been me, I said. That's the part that stays with me, Delia. Not the money, the erasure. I think I just believed what everyone else believed, she whispered, that you'd chosen distance, that you didn't care. I wanted to say I did care in ways that didn't look like theirs, that I watched from the edges 'cause that's where they kept me. But I didn't say it. I just let the silence hold. When she spoke again, her voice was smaller. What happens now, I sent an offer, I said. Through Yvette. You can take it or leave it. Can we talk again? After you've had time? You're talking to me now. There was another silence, heavier this time. Okay, she said. I ended the call before her voice could crack again. Then I turned to my inbox and saw the vendor contract had been opened and downloaded. Delia called again that evening. This time she didn't cry. We're moving forward with the new venue, she said. Mom signed the contract. Reed's parents are confused, but trying to stay out of it. I waited. We're grateful, she added. Really, I know this whole thing shouldn't have happened, and I know I have no right to ask, but would you consider coming to the wedding? I exhaled slowly. Only under 3 conditions. Okay, she said, already bracing. What are they? 1, I want a formal apology. Not a text, not a mumbled sorry at the buffet line. A real apology. For the decision, for the erasure. From all of us, she asked. From everyone who took part in it, I said. You, Mom, Dad, Reed if he had a say. You decide who that includes. She was quiet, but she didn't object. 2. I continued. I want acknowledgement. Not just that what happened was hurtful, but that it was based on a version of me you all chose to believe. The one who never made it, never mattered, never stayed. I understand, she said. And 3, I said, I want the invitation restored. Not out of guilt, not because you feel obligated. I want to be there because you want me there. Not because you need the help. Not because it would look bad to leave me out. I won't stand in that room unless I know it's real. Delia didn't answer right away. "That's fair," she said at last. "More than fair. I think I need to talk to Mom and Dad." "You should," I said. "Would you be willing to meet?" she asked. "In person." "Not for the wedding before. That depends on them." "I'll reach out again soon," she promised. "Thank you for at least picking up." She hung up before I could respond. I stared at my screen for a long time after that, then turned off the office lights and stepped out onto the balcony as the city lit up beneath me. I reserved the West Dining Room at Halebridge Manor, one of my first successful restorations. They'd walked past the name on glossy brochures and highway signage without knowing it belonged to me. I arrived early. The room was set with hand-cut glassware and oak-paneled walls that caught the early light just right. No one had ever asked me what I'd built these past 12 years. They would see it now. At 2:05 they arrived. Delia first, then our parents. Reed trailed behind, hands in his pockets. They paused at the entrance eyes, adjusting to a world they never thought I inhabited. Lyra Maris said, forcing a smile too wide, "This place is stunning." I nodded toward the table. "Have a seat." No one touched the menus. Dorian cleared his throat. "We came because we owe you an apology. A real one." I said nothing. He looked down, then up again. "We misjudged you, Lyra. For a long time. We told ourselves you'd walked away, that you'd made choices we couldn't understand. But really, we just never bothered to understand." Maris picked at the corner of her napkin. "I didn't know you'd built all this. I thought you were keeping busy. I didn't realize you were becoming this." Delia spoke next. "I'm sorry for not defending you, for letting other people speak for me, for assuming you'd never show up even when you were the one who made everything possible." I kept my eyes on them. I didn't reach across the table. I didn't soften. I didn't want an apology because I need to hear nice words, I said. I wanted it because I needed to know you finally saw me. Not as the dropout, not as the disappointment. As the woman who built the house you stood in. Reed leaned forward. "We're sorry. And if there's a way to move forward, we'd like to." I studied them for a moment longer, then reached for the water pitcher and poured myself a glass. The silence that followed wasn't awkward. It was earned. Delia placed a hand on the table. "Would you consider standing with us at the wedding?" she asked. I looked at her. This time, I didn't say no. Delia waited until our parents had left the dining room. Reed stepped outside to take a call, giving her space she didn't ask for, but needed. She stayed seated, fingers curled around the rim of her glass gaze, steady but unsure. "I meant what I said earlier," she began. "I don't want you at the wedding because it would look bad without you. I want you there because I finally get what it means to have a sister like you." I didn't respond right away. I've spent most of my life comparing us without realizing how unfair the scale was. She continued, "I let other people tell me what success looked like. You were never missing. I was just never looking in the right direction." There was no flattery in her tone, just quiet truth. "I don't want you as a guest," she said. "I want you beside me. Will you stand with me not as the person who funded this, but as my sister?" I studied her for a moment. "This doesn't erase anything I said." She nodded. "I know. It doesn't undo the years." "I don't want it to," she said. "I just want to stop pretending they didn't happen." I reached for my glass, raised it slightly. "Then we start here," I said. "And we build forward." The corner of her mouth lifted. For the first time in a long time, it felt like we were speaking from the same page, not across some unspoken distance. I left the dining room not as the financier or the invisible daughter, but as the woman finally choosing what role she wanted to play. 2 days later, I received the official invitation in the mail. My name was listed not under special thanks, but under bridal party. The wedding unfolded exactly as I knew it would. My team moved like clockwork florals arranged with quiet elegance, soft lighting warming the edges of the garden catering staff, slipping between guests with practiced ease. Every inch of Briarfield carried my signature, even if most people still didn't know it. Delia looked beautiful. Reed looked nervous but grounded. Our parents kept glancing my way, not out of suspicion anymore, but out of some new awareness that I existed outside their assumptions. During the reception, Delia took the mic and said a few heartfelt words. Then she passed it to me. I stood in front of a crowd that once would have overlooked me. This time, they listened. "I've spent most of my life being quiet," I began. Not because I had nothing to say, but because I thought silence meant peace. What I learned is silence also builds. It builds patience. It builds resilience. It builds foundations. I glanced toward Delia. "Love should never be quiet," I said. "But sometimes silence is what built the table." I didn't say more. I didn't need to. Applause followed soft and real. Later that night, as the last guests filtered out and the music dimmed, I stepped into the back garden and pulled out my phone. I typed one line. "Dinner." Next week, Delia's reply came a minute later. "Absolutely." I locked the screen and slipped the phone into my coat pocket as one of my staff approached to confirm final breakdown instructions. I nodded, gave a few directions, and watched as they moved effortlessly through a space I'd once only dreamed of owning. No one had to see it all for it to matter. I built it anyway, and I'd keep building.